Welcome on in. I told you we had some Cavs tough stuff to talk about, and we got my man Greg Swartz, columnist of the Bleacher Report in the building. We're going to be talking about the Cavs, the East, James Harden, how he got into the fold, and how did this thing really play out? Like, I got to figure out what's going on with Darius Garland. Like, how did this really thing come to fruition? And if the Cavs are going to be the team to really beat, we'll come back and do it right here on this episode of the Barbershop. Come on in. We got Greg Swartz of the Bleacher Report. Greg, it's been a while since we talked to you. What's going on, my guy?
Garrett, I'm so happy to be here with you. We've done a lot of shows together, and I'm happy we're continuing this now.
Yeah, man. Super happy to have you back in the fold. And before we even get to it, man, make sure you're checking out Greg Swartz of the Bleacher Report. Make sure you follow him on the Bleacher Report at Greg Swartz Bleacher Report. You've got columns up all the time. You're part of the Bleacher Report family, and one of the author of a wine and gold winner, the best moments of the Cleveland Cavaliers 2016 championship. So you've been in with the Cavaliers. You've been talking to us a lot about the Cavs. Tell us initially your thoughts really quickly about the James Harden move, and did you expect this thing to come down the way it did?
No, I don't think anyone except for the inner circle of Darius Garland and James Harden knew this trade was even remotely possible until the week of the trade deadline. I was very surprised that it went down. James Harden was not a guy that I foresaw ending up on the Cavaliers at the beginning of the season. It would not have shocked me to have heard that Darius Garland would have been traded, but I did not think a swap with James Harden was going to happen. I was surprised at the trade. I'm still not a giant fan of the trade from someone who's been following James Harden since he was with Oklahoma City. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I was shocked at the trade and not a fan of it overall.
All right, well, here we go. Listen, this is why we do it. You thought I was going to bring somebody over here that was going to be, he's going to agree with G, but no. I like the trade. We'll talk to Greg Swartz. We'll get into the insides and outs of it. But let's get to Rich Paul said this, and he was with Max Kellerman, and we'll let him tell it. He knew this was going to be his last year before it happened.
Coming season, I sat Darius down, and I explained to him, I was like, this is going to be your last year on the Cavs. Very matter-of-factly, because I do things very black and white. I said, that's just the way it's going to be for a number of reasons that it take too long to get into, but that's just my foresight. And I also had the conversation with Kobe Altman, who runs the Cavs. And I said, Kobe, listen, this is what it's going to be. I understand it. The hopes is they go out and they play a great year and they try to contend and then anything short of a championship run, there has to be a change.
Because there's redundancy on the rock. By the way, and that redundancy.
Now, this is when I heard this, Greg, I was like, okay. So from my perspective, I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. Does that mean Rich Paul was going to force his hand? Was that mean that Rich was going to come to Dan Gilbert or Kobe Altman and say, hey, listen, we understand that you got Donovan Mitchell. We understand that it might be a little bit of a situation where you need these guys to have the ball in their hands. And this is not looking out. The eye guy out is looking like Darius Garland. If you're looking at the core four, Jared Allen can get the ball and finish. He don't need any touches. He's basically a guy that's going to touch the football or touch the basketball. And then you got obviously Evan Mobley, who took a step and with what he was able to do and making All NBA and Defensive Player of the Year. So do you think like they was going to make the move one way or the other?
Yeah, so Rich Paul says that, and he says for a number of different reasons, but he doesn't say what they were. So this could have been a number of things. Number one, Darius Garland would have been extension eligible this summer. He would have got 2 years remaining on his contract. He's on a max deal, but it was signed a couple years ago, so it's not quite as much as the Evan Mobley max deal, the Donovan Mitchell max deal right now. He's still at $39 million. So I wonder if Kobe and Rich had conversations already about we want a max extension. Maybe the Cavs weren't quite as eager to do that. I don't know, but I'm saying he would have been extension eligible this summer. And with two guys under 30% max deals already, that's a lot. And if you look around the league with the second apron restrictions, teams cannot support three max guys. The Phoenix Suns tried it last year with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. It did not go well. They didn't make the playoffs. And what happened? They traded Kevin Durant. They waived Bradley Beal, who they're now going to be paying $20 million to over the next 5 years to not play for them. Teams have a real fear of the second apron. And unless your superstars, the guys that you're paying max contracts to, are top 10 players, you are going to maximum have 2 on your roster. You're just not going to have 3. So I think it was more of a, we don't think this is sustainable. We looked at the way the season ended last year with Darius hurt, and we don't have the resources to commit this kind of money to. We don't want to stay in the second apron long term. The Cavs already have their 2033 pick frozen where they can't trade it. Now they have to spend 3 of the next 4 years out of the second apron to unfreeze that pick, and they don't want to face all these other restrictions. So I think there's a number of reasons. Obviously, he didn't say it, but in this day and age, in the NBA's second apron, having 3 max guys probably isn't sustainable long term.
So you look at it, that's aside from Rich Paul. There's also aside from the Cavaliers, and you think the Cavs look at it and say, listen, I have reservations about Darius Garland. Now, part of Darius Garland's game is he's stop, he's start, he's twitchy, he gets to the basket. He's a guy that needs to have the basketball in his hands. And if he's not going to be a guy with the basketball in his hands, and he's going to have not 1 but 2 big toe injuries, we don't know if that's going to be sustainable. Do you think the Cavs looked at it and said, we're in the air about Darius. We like him. We like our car forward, but we might have hit our ceiling. And then the Donovan Mitchell elephant is in the room, which is Donovan Mitchell is on another timetable, which I think the timetable for him is, I got to win championships. I'm getting old quick. And do you think those things kind of playing in the role of the Cavs thinking of, okay, well, we might have to make a move here?
You hit the nail on the head right there. Donovan Mitchell. That's what this franchise is all about right now. This isn't about James Harden. This isn't about Evan Mobley, as much as the Cavs have wanted it to be over the last couple of years. It's still about Donovan Mitchell, who's a top 10 player in the NBA, having arguably the best season of his career. And what did we do 2 years ago? It was, is Donovan Mitchell going to sign the extension? Is he going to request a trade? He ended up signing an extension, but it gave him a lot of flexibility where now going into next season, he's only going to have one guaranteed year left on his deal. So he can opt out after year 10. He can command that 35% max contract if he wants to, 5 years, around $380 million. Is that the kind of money that the Cavs want to invest in a guard who, he's strong, but he's a smaller guard. He's not a 6'5", 6'6" guard. And we've seen guys teams commit big money to smaller guards. Outside of Steph Curry, it usually doesn't end well. So this is them wanting Donovan to sign the extension now, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. They can still sign him at a comfortable number where it's like 4 years, $270. It's a little bit less than if they go into unrestricted free agency with him, where he's under contract for $67-ish million a year, which is a lot of money, but that's not as much as he can make on the open market. So they want to keep Donovan happy. They want to get him signed to an extension this summer when he can sign it where he's got the 1 guaranteed year left on his deal. He can extend for 4 more years. And this is turning up the pressure on the organization to say, hey, we're making this move for this year. We want to get you past the second round, a place you've never been before. We are all in for a title. We are sacrificing our future with a 26-year-old Darius Garland for a 36-year-old who is the better player right now. We're doing all we can to win you a championship this season.
Well, you just moved us right into, you just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You just moved us right into what we want to get to, because that is, I think, the crux of it. It's like, yo, you get James Harden, you get a guy who you take a look at what James Harden is able to do. Right now, most people would say he's the better player right now than Darius Garland from a passing, scoring standpoint. But it's 2 different trajectories. It's 2 different track records at which you're trying to get to. James Harden is at the latter part of his career. You said you were moving with Darius Garland in the core 4. Obviously, there's some things that needed to happen. Really quickly, we'll play this clip from James Harden. He's talking about what it is to be in Cleveland. One of the things that, he talked about was Cleveland is always a great place to play in terms of the fans and the atmosphere. And he talks about how he always had some trouble coming into Cleveland, and they always expect.
Every time I come here as a visitor, they're crazy. about the Cavs and the land, and very loyal, and they show up every single night. It's one of the things that I was mostly excited about. So tonight was no different.
So you take a look at James Harden, what he's been able to do. First of all, we'll go back a little bit to the shot he hit against the Denver Nuggets. So far, the 3 games you've seen, you see the Sacramento Kings game where he hit a couple of big shots down the stretch. He's hit a big shot against Denver to kind of tie that ball game up. And, yesterday it was more about the others. You saw what Sam Merrill was able to do. But in terms of your thought process, right? So you hear the trade. Has there been a difference in what you thought about James Harden? Has it shifted from the time you heard the trade until now? And do you think there's room for you to change your thought process if it hasn't?
Nothing has surprised me so far. I expected this to go really well. I wrote an article the night that James Harden was traded to Cleveland, and I said, this is going to look really great at the beginning. I said, he's going to have a 30-point triple-double. There's going to be a night where he hits 6 3-pointers, and he's, the shooting guard to Donovan Mitchell's point guard, and everything's going to look great at the beginning. And it has. The win over the Kings and the Wizards, that's expected, right? 2 of the worst teams in the NBA. But to go into Denver, when you're already on a West Coast trip, you have been away from home for a while. That's one of the toughest places to play with the elevation, with how good that Denver is. They were at almost full strength with all their stars. That was an impressive win. That was great. The Cavs right now are one of the hottest teams in basketball. My hesitation is we've seen this before. It's always started out well with James Harden and all of his other stops, but it's not how it starts. It's how it finishes. And if James isn't getting paid, he's usually a little unhappy. So I know a lot of people will look at this and say, look how great James Harden is doing. And he is. He's a phenomenal passer. He's a great player. Jarrett Allen is feasting off of his playmaking right now, averaging 20 and 10 a game in the 3 games that he's been with him, shooting 80% from the field. This is how it's going to look for a while. Now, obviously, when Evan Mobley comes back, you got to make another adjustment, and a couple of guys got to give up some shots. I don't care about the regular season. This trade was not for the regular season. The Cavs are at a point where we should not care how well they do in the regular season because they did great last year, and it ended with another second-round exit. I want to see how this goes in April and May and June before I consider whether this trade was a success or not.
Let me tell you this. I like what you said right there because we do have to understand that, people will say, it's looked like this before. He was like this when it was with Philadelphia. He was, Embiid looked great. He was like this when he said, right now he felt he was the greatest in the world. He's like, I'm back home. I'm in LA. How much of this is the contract, which you mentioned, $13 million, it was only guaranteed? Now, he said, from what we're hearing is that he wanted to go back and renegotiate and get that money from LA. And LA said, no. We don't want, we're very conscious of what we're doing in 2027. We want our books cleared. We're not going to do that. How does this thing play out with the Cavs? Because you did move Darius Garland. What is the long-term viability for James Harden? And what does Kobe Altman think about? Is this a thing where they have to, pass or get to a certain round? What would they do to look to extend him? Or are they not looking to extend him? What's the long-term viability with James Harden? Or is this your one-year rental in your mind?
Well, so you played a clip earlier of Rich Paul talking about the situation, which he is as close to the situation as anybody because he represents Darius Garland. And I went back and I listened to the whole podcast twice just to make sure I wasn't missing anything. So there's a point in there where Max Kellerman asked Rich Paul, do you think there's already a deal in place with James Harden and the Cavs? Because these things typically happen ahead of time. Nothing can officially be agreed to. Do you think there's a deal in place where he's getting paid? And Rich Paul says, yes. Now, that could mean that they have mutually agreed to pick up his player option, which James can do, and the Cavs can say, no, we don't want that. We're going to pay you $13 million to not play for us, and we're going to take the cap space. This could have been a circumstance where they just agreed to pay him that $42 million player option next year. It could also mean that James has decided that they have an agreement in place where maybe he's going to not pick up that player option, and we have a new 2-year deal coming or a new 3-year deal coming. He can only sign up to 3 years because of the over 36 rule in the CBA, because he's at that age where they're afraid of guys getting paid when they're 40 years old. And unless you're LeBron James, you typically don't deserve it because your production's going to fall off. So if Rich Paul thinks that there is a contract in place, and he's a phenomenal agent, as we know, he's done a lot of big deals. He represents some of the biggest players.
I mean, he is the NBA agent guy. I mean, he kind of know.
He knows. So if he thinks there's a deal in place, there's probably a deal in place. For me, hopefully it just means, James, we're going to pick up your $42 million player option. We're not going to buy you out at 13. And then we're going to see where it goes from there. And we don't have a long-term commitment. I'm hoping that's what it is. I'm hoping there's not like a 3-year, $120 million contract that's coming. Basically the same deal that Darius Garland was on, that, you know, a lot of people, a lot of Cavs fans quickly pointed out, well, he's making all this money and he's overpaid. Well, the difference is in 3 years, Darius Garland is going to be 29 years old and could be the prime of his career. In 3 years, James Harden could be out of the league. Very few guys play until they're almost 40. So I'm a little hesitant to see what that contract looks like. But if Rich Paul thinks he's getting paid, then he's probably getting paid, and there's probably already a deal in place.
See, this is why I got you on. You dropping jewels. Nobody told me that. But you see, this is the first I'm hearing a lot of people break it down like that. And if I'm on record, I want to stay flexible. I need to have, I can't do that. I mean, if they want to do to pick the 42 up, and then with another year, we can do that. I ain't even talked to you. We'll save this to next week. We haven't even talked about this. We bring you on. I got to talk about one kid from Akron, but we'll get to that later. Or I just don't. I want. Make sure y'all hit like and subscribe. You mentioned something a little bit earlier. Let's get to it. This is from Clutch Points, and they talked about with the acquisition of James Harden, the Cavs have formed a new core four that could be any roster in the East. When this team hits full health, they are a four-headed all-star squad. You got Donovan Mitchell, James Harden, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. When you take a look at what the Cavs have been able to do so far, and you just see what Jarrett Allen is doing. Jarrett Allen's out here playing like he's a new person. I mean, he don't miss now. Evidently, he is technical fouls, Greg. He's a thug now. He's out here moving people around. So you see what he's able to do passing. Sam Merrill's getting hot. What is the ceiling for the Cavs if they can get Evan Mobley back indoctrinated into the fold a little bit, and mentioning Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis? What do you think that roster looks like in the East?
They're not going to get the number 1 seed because they've dug themselves too deep a hole. The Detroit Pistons have gotten off to such a good start that they're not going to catch them. But this could easily be the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. I mean, easily. As we stand right now, the Cavs are a game and a half back of Boston. Boston is a team that is good. I think they have overplayed what their talent really is. Jaylen Brown has obviously had a fantastic season. They made the trade for Nikola Vucevic at the trade deadline. I don't know how much that helps them because he's a big body. They needed a center. He's probably one of the worst defensive centers in the NBA. He's a guy that you can attack over and over and over again. Jarrett Allen would have a field day with him, like he did against Donovan Mitchell in the Portland game, like he's done the last 3 games, especially with James Harden setting him up. So for us to be 1 game back of the Knicks, a game and a half back of Boston, we're 7 back of Detroit. We're not going to make that up. But I'll say this, if we get into the playoffs, none of those teams scare me if I'm the Cavs. Detroit is a team that, as good as their regular season has been, who's their head coach? J.B. Bickerstaff. What is he known for? Having a great regular season, not much playoff success. Detroit was a team that I thought should have gone out and got another guy at the trade deadline, a Lauri Markkanen, a Michael Porter Jr., another big-time scorer on the wing. Instead, they traded Jaden Ivey, the guy that could have been their long-term number 2. Obviously, he's had some injury issues. Detroit in a playoff series does not scare me. They're a good defensive team. If you can shut down Cade Cunningham, you shut down that entire offense, and that offense isn't good as it is. The Knicks, obviously, we've run in the playoffs before. Again, Karl-Anthony Towns, he's a big that you can attack on defense. Now we have 2 bigs that are going to roll to the rim. James Harden's going to find them. I like that matchup. And then obviously the Celtics. That's a team to watch because we don't know if Jason Tatum's going to come back. He's begun rehabbing and practicing with the G League team. There's a chance he comes back from a torn Achilles. How good is he going to be? So I probably no time in my life has been the East been this wide open. The Cavs should absolutely be salivating at the fact that we have some new energy with Harden now. We don't even have Evan Mobley back, and we've been playing well. To me, if they don't get the 2 seed, it's a disappointment in the regular season.
Yeah, I take a look at this, and we just throw this out here as well. NBA Central. The Cavs are going into the break on a heater, 1-9 of 10. They are now the favorite to make the finals in the East. That's kind of crazy. That, like, I'm gonna be honest. Before I talk to you, there was a point in the season where I had felt like the Cavs had completely peaked. I just felt like, to me, I think the Cavaliers, and to a lesser extent, I think they banked a lot on Evan Mobley's progression offensively. I think they really, in the beginning of the season, really tried to put him in a position where he could really showcase what he had brought to the table and his growth. And then this year, he's had the injuries. He's not shooting the 3 well at all. And it just seemed like they were kind of disappointed in that experiment. And then coupled with the fact that Darius's injuries was, hobbling him again, I just felt like they had reached a ceiling. And now that you got James Harden in the micro, you take a look at what he's able to do in some of the playmaking ability. At least when you're playing a team like Detroit, I know I got 2 guys that if the first 2 options ain't open or available, I at least know I could put the ball in one of those guys' hands and they can go get me a shot. And you said something, they just don't. Detroit, I know you got Cade. I know you got him, but they just don't scare me. If it's a 7-game series, even if they got home court advantage, you telling me I can't go steal one of Detroit? I think we can.
Absolutely. And, Detroit they made the playoffs last year. They lost in the first round. They don't have a ton of guys with playoff experience. And one of the guys they were leaning heavily on last year in the playoffs was Tobias Harris. No offense to Tobias Harris, but it's the year 2026. I'm not worried about Tobias Harris in the playoffs anymore.
Not at all.
And another thing, if you look at the remaining strength of schedule, which I think is important because we're in the middle of February and there are teams, we're 2 months away from the regular season ending. There are probably 10 teams that are not going to try to win a game for the rest of the year. The good news is the Cavs play a lot of those teams. In the entire Eastern Conference, the Cavs have the second easiest remaining strength of schedule. Only the Atlanta Hawks, who, again, not worried about them because they're in the play-in tournament right now. Only the Hawks have an easier remaining schedule in the East than the Cavaliers do. And on the flip side of that, the Boston Celtics have the second hardest remaining schedule. The Detroit Pistons have the 4th hardest. And the New York Knicks have the 5th hardest. So the 3 teams that the Cavs need to lose all have top 5 hardest remaining schedules in the East. The Cavs have the second easiest. They play the Brooklyn Nets twice before the season's over. They play the Wizards. They play the Pelicans. They play the Jazz. They play all these teams that are not trying to win. The Indiana Pacers, who just traded for Ivica Zubac and are already like, oh, wait, he's got an injury. Oh, man, he can't play. What a coincidence. The Cavs, on the other hand, we get Detroit 2 more times. We get Boston 1 more time. We get the Knicks 1 more time. So that's good. We can see how we look against some of those top teams. But in the long run, our schedule is one of the easiest in the entire NBA moving forward.
Listen, those are the games that I like because I do think that there's something to be said really quickly about coming together and getting this thing. There's a couple of pieces. You got to get Evan Mobley back. That's a thing. You also have to get, is there any updates on Max Strus? Because that would be I would like to get him back in the mix. I don't know what he's going to be able to shape, but those are 2 pieces or parts that I think, really can help you out. And getting those guys interjected. What is the latest on Max Strus? And do you think how much, will he get an opportunity to get some run or get his feet under him before the playoffs come?
The Max Strus situation is not good. Obviously, with the broken foot, we thought maybe around December, and then they put out an update around December, January, and said, well, he's had a setback, and we're going to have to reevaluate. I have heard zero positive news about Max Strus. I thought he was going to be moved at the trade deadline. I thought he was going to be the contract that got traded to bring in a different rotation player who made a little bit less money to get us under the second apron. Because when you trade a 26-year-old for a 36-year-old, you're saying we're worried about right now. And the fact that Max Strus, who hopefully he will be back for the playoffs, hopefully he will, but it doesn't sound like he's anywhere close. And you need guys that can win right now, contribute right now. And the one thing that DeAndre Hunter, I love the DeAndre Hunter trade. Don't get me wrong. I make that 10 out of 10 times, but your wing got a lot smaller and you are a lot more guard heavy. You need a Max Strus, who's not the biggest wing, but he's a wing. And when you have to play Jaylen Tyson at the 4, who's probably a 2 or a 3, you're a little thin on the wings. So I hope Max Strus can come back, but I've heard nothing positive about him. And obviously that's the one weakness on this Cavs roster now is that size on the wing.
Well, you talk about this. One guy who is a very pleasant surprise is Jaylen Tyson. Our Rising Star takes stage tonight, 9 o'clock on Peacock. Make sure you check Jaylen Tyson out at All-Star Weekend. Really quickly, just with Jaylen Tyson, I did not see this at all. Listen, this is coming from the Imani Bates guy. This is coming from, like, when Jaylen Tyson got on the court, I said, oh, listen, yeah, y'all not going to be able to get on the floor with Jaylen Tyson. I mean, not only did I not see, I didn't think he was going to turn himself into a defensive type minded, I'm going to do all the little small things to keep myself on the court. But the fact that he's shooting at this clip, is this fool's gold, or is he legitimately a top 5 shooter in the league? Because right now, if he's going to be able to do those things, he kind of reminds me of a, I don't know, maybe a taller, better playmaking version potentially of Josh Hart. What do you make of his trajectory, and are you surprised he's doing what he's doing?
I think Josh Hart is an excellent comparison because they have similar size. They have similar skill sets where they can help out in a number of different areas. But Josh Hart ain't never shot the ball like this. Never. Jaylen Tyson, now that Luke Kennard's been traded to the Lakers, Jaylen Tyson is the best three-point shooter in the entire Eastern Conference at 48%. The Cavs have the number 2 and number 3 shooter in the NBA with Sam Merrill as well. Number 1 and number 2 if you look at just the Eastern Conference. I didn't see the three-point shooting. I thought Jaylen Tyson, this was his year we knew Darius was going to miss the beginning of the year. We knew Max Strus was going to miss the beginning of the year. We thought, okay, this is Jaylen Tyson's time to shine. He's been better than I expected, and I've been pretty high on him the last couple of years. I think he's automatically the starting small forward moving forward because when Evan Mobley comes back, he's going to be the 4. Tyson's going to shift up to the 3. I think that's a perfect spot for him. Obviously, he's going to get a ton of open looks playing with guys like Donovan Mitchell, James Harden. Even Evan Mobley's averaging 4 assists this year. Like, he's a good passer. Jared Allen, I think, is an underrated passer as well. He's in a perfect role. And possibly my favorite thing about Jaylen Tyson, because the Cavs have needed this the last couple of years, the Cavs have been too soft. Jaylen Tyson is feisty. He's tough. He's not afraid to get in somebody's face. And I love that. I love that we signed Naquan Tomlin to a deal, that we have Jaylen Tyson, because when teams start pushing you around in the playoffs and the Cavs have had no one to push back because they've had a roster full of nice guys, Jaylen Tyson is going to get in somebody's face in the playoffs, and he's going to let them know you're not going to do that to the Cavs anymore. And the other guys are going to rally behind him. He's exactly what this roster needed.
Naquan, I could have said it better. Naquan, I love the fact they had to find a spot for him on that roster. And guys, like, he's not a two-way player. I just like the feistiness. I like the fact that he's trying to tear the rim down on every opportunity. He knows what he brings to the table. You take a look at how they were able to remake this thing with Dennis Schroeder, Keon Ellis, defensive-minded guy. Jaylen Tyson, and you got those guys coming off your bench, or those are your role guys. You can do something with that. You're not. I don't think you're going to look at the New York Knicks and say the lights was too bright anymore. your thoughts on really quickly before we get you out of here. You said that the Pistons, I would put them at the number 1 seed. The cool thing about it is, when we learned what it is to have a really nice record, and we didn't finish the deal. Yep. So I'm not too worried about that. What are your thoughts really quickly? You mentioned the Celtics, haven't talked about the Knicks. What are your thoughts on the Knicks and some of the things that they've been able to do? They've been playing well this year, and their outlook.
I think the Knicks are the Cavs' biggest competition in the East because they're playoff tested. Jaylen Brunson has proven that he can step up when the lights are the brightest in the playoffs. He's almost impossible to guard because he can get in the mid-range. He can shoot threes. He's an expert at manipulating the defense where he can get a defender on his hip. He can draw fouls. Karl Anthony Towns, like I said, you can attack him defensively, but offensively, he's great. He's leading the NBA in rebounds this season as well. And obviously the wing depth on that team with the Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. They got a little deeper off that bench when they added Jordan Clarkson this year. The Knicks are good. They're a good team. I think it's going to be Cleveland and New York in the Eastern Conference Finals right now, if I had to guess. And obviously that depends on if Jason Tatum comes back as well. But the Knicks are good. And the last time we played them, they were the tougher team. And now with Jalen Tyson stepping up, and like you said, Dennis Schroeder, who is a guy that tried to physically fight Luka Doncic in the hallway after a game one time. We didn't have guys like that on the roster anymore. So we finally have some feistiness. We have some toughness. I think when we get to the playoffs, and like no disrespect to the Pistons, who are a very good team, they don't scare me. The Knicks are the one team that scared me a little bit. I was glad they didn't trade for Giannis because that would have been terrifying. Yeah. But I think as is, the Cavs and the Knicks, clearly the two best teams in what's been a wide open East. And I think those are going to be the two teams in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Greg, tell everybody where they can find you, read your work, and get in contact with you. Doing a great job on Bleacher Report.
Yeah, thanks, man. Season 16 over at Bleacher Report covering the NBA for me. Greg Swartz BR on Twitter. I'm not too active on there, but occasionally I put some information, some stats out there that you might want to read. So yeah, come check us out at Bleacher Report.
And you know what I told you? You thought I was lying. I say I'm gonna come with the basketball content. I really think the Cavs, what they did and energized the fan base, got us back, and I think it put them right into the context of being a team that can compete for the East and go to the finals. So we'll continue to do this content, continue to bring Greg on, and I think he's a great addition to what we're trying to do at the Barbershop. Well, you never know when I might show up, radio, television, or internet, but if you want a fresh cut on sports, G. Bush keeps the Clippers with me. Have a great rest of your evening, and as always, I say go Browns, but it's also go Cavs.